It's just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Daniel C. Delrose, DDS, FICOI. He's a graduate of Case Western Reserve School of Dentistry. He then finished a fellowship in prosthetics before joining the U.S. Navy. Thank you for your service. His last duty in the Navy was as a branch prosthodontist. He joined North River Dental, a private dental practice in Ellenton, Florida, in 1997. In 2017, he received his fellowship in the International Congress of Oral Implantologists. He's a member of the, oh my God, too many to name, ADA, FDA, WCDA. What's WCDA? West Coast Dental. And then what's MDA?
Manatee County Dental Association, Manatee Dental Association.
Okay, and then AACD, FACD. What's ISCD?
ISCD is the International,
Society of
Computerized Dentistry. Computerized Dentistry, yeah. I used to be the North American editor for the magazine years ago.
He is also a key opinion leader for Carestream Dental. Lectures for Carestream Dental, Colgate, Dental Learning. He has... lectures on marketing of dental implants. You have two children, a daughter, a graduate from the University of Alabama, and a son just graduated with a master's in aerospace engineering from Georgia Tech. He's an avid sailor, a licensed USCG captain, and has been married for 26 years. You've made so many contributions to the dental field. You helped develop a case presentation module for Kodak SoftDent. You've been a beta tester for Dexus, Dentsply, Kodak, Trophy. SoftDent, I started with SoftDent. That was 32 years ago. To all you historians, that was the #1 practice management software when I got out of school in 87. It was originally developed by Infosoft, which is White Marsh, Maryland. It was purchased by PracticeWorks, which was then bought by Kodak. And then, and Kodak sold that to a Canadian company, Onyx, who renamed it Carestream, which then spun off the dental application, and now Lisa runs the whole thing. I mean, my gosh, if you could follow, it'd be easier to follow the family tree of your great-great-grandmother than SoftDent. That was a long ride, my gosh. So tell me, what are you doing now? What are you up to these days? You've been published in JADA, Dental Economics. You're always lecturing. You were in Scottsdale here, 2 weeks ago?
Yep, with Blatchford Solutions.
Oh, Blatchford.
Practice management. Bill Blatchford.
Yeah. Was Bill down?
Yes, he was. He's just amazing. I tell you what, I hope when I'm 77, I have that much. I hope when I'm 57, I have that much energy.
Yeah, he stopped by here and did a podcast. I'll never forget the first time I heard him speak. It was in 87, and I'm in Phoenix, and I had to drive an hour and a half south to Tucson to go see him. And then when he was done, he was stressed out about trying to find a taxi back to Phoenix, and I'm like, well, I'm headed right back to Phoenix. So I got to give him a ride all the way back and just downloaded his entire brain in 90 miles. It was
what a great opportunity.
Yeah, it was so fun. Yeah. And so he's still doing it. So when you saw him, what were you guys talking about? What was the feel of the room? What was the information? What were people most passionate about learning?
It was a basic class, a lot of new dentists. I'm at a point now where I'm enjoying talking with these new dentists. I always think to myself, boy, I wish I could be 30 years younger at all the mistakes I made. So I try and talk to these young dentists coming up and giving them, my opinion. And as we talk a little bit more, Howard, you'll find out I'm incredibly opinionated. And it's just my life experiences. And I'm sure people could find documentation showing that some of my opinions are wrong, but they've worked for me.
I'm lucky. I'm 57 and I've still never been wrong. That's why I can't say the word very well. But
let's not be married then.
So was it a practice management seminar?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Yeah, and what's the what was Bill's thoughts on these kids? Because they continue to push the dental school elites continue to push the narrative that their kids are graduating $284,000 student loans because they intentionally take out the math that 20% of the kids had no borrowed money for their deal, so that dilutes the reality that it's $100,000 of debt a year. They come out $400,000 in debt. How do you think that's going to change their outlook today versus when you got out 3 decades ago?
Well, once again, my personal perspective is I've always worked with other dentists, but it's always been in a a setting where our number one focus has been the patient. So after dental school, prosthetics, and then the Navy, and I have a private practice now with my partner, Dick Steinberg. And so I've always had the advantage of bouncing ideas and stuff off other dentists. I don't know about corporate dentistry, and I really don't want to talk a lot about that, but I think there's a place for that. Some of the advice I give these young dentists just graduating dental school, maybe that isn't a bad option for you to go and getting some experience doing dentistry before opening up a private practice. It's incredible, $400,000 in debt, and to really set your own practice up nowadays, you got to have an intraoral scanner. Okay, you got to have a CBCT, just stay within the standard of care. So there's $130,000, $140,000 just in two pieces of equipment that you need.
So you think you think you need to have an oral scanner and a CBCT?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, my homies are going to hold you to. You got to name a name brand. If
you're
a real live dentist and you really have one of these things, we want to know which one you have.
Well, yeah, I'm past president of the Academy of CAD-CAM Dentistry, so I've had them all. We started with CIRAC in 2002. That's when they went from the 2D to 3D model. 2008, we were number 82 to buy the E4D. And about 7 years ago, we're talking about Carestream. Ed Shallard approached me and my partner, Dick Steinberg, to help develop the CS3500, which is now evolved to the CS3700. So if I was going to use a digital scanner, I would use a DS3700, once again, because I helped design it. But it's mobile. It's designed like an intraoral camera.
So the Kodak DS37 3700
yes.
oral scanner is your favorite.
Yes, it is.
And there's some so 3M just got rid of TrueDef, right?
Yeah.
So they paid a fortune for that. What was it, like $90 million when they started that? So how do you buy something for $90 million and then shed it? I mean, how does that work?
Well, because they bought another process, and have you ever been to the fair where they have the squiggly wire and there's a ring around it, and you have to get from one end without touching the wire, and you win the prize?
Right.
That was designed when you're trying to scan with that. When Carestream approached us, when Ed Shallard approached us, he said, "What would you do as a CAD-CAM dentist? What would you like?" It had to be very intuitive. It had to be very simple that any dentist could pick it up. And the nice thing also is you're not changing how you practice dentistry. So if you've been practicing dentistry and doing crown and bridge, and you do it a certain way, Carestream's not saying now you have to do it this way. Do it the same way, but instead of grabbing the impression material, grab your intraoral scanner.
And how much is, and by the way, this isn't a commercial. Lisa didn't call me and tell me to have this guy, or Ed Shallard. My God, we've been friends forever. My God.
Yeah, he graduated in 87.
Yeah, we're the same age. I still don't understand why I look like I'm his dad, but anyway, so this, how much is the CS3700?
I really couldn't tell you. I'm assuming
spoken like a true dentist.
Yeah.
So, a lot of my lab friends tell me that, if you're a lazy dentist and you take crappy impressions, you go into Crown and Bridge labs, people still send in quadrant trays with the cotton roll still stuck in it. And there's red blood in it, all dried up. It's just crazy. But my lab, all my lab friends say that the CD dentist who switched from sending them horrible gum impressions, that they get an oral scanner and they're horrible scans, and that the dentists who are really particular and trying to do BA work, they can't tell. They say it doesn't matter. So if that's the case, why should you go oral scanner if quality is more associated with your constraints you put on yourself as opposed to the technology? Why are you a supporter of this?
Well, I'm going to tell you, because you're absolutely right. When I have dentists come, we used to teach for CIRAC and for a little while for E4D, and the dentist would say, "Well, do I need a pack retraction cord?" I would say if you can see a margin, then no. It's just like normal crown and bridge. Like I said before, you're not changing the way you practice dentistry. If you can't see a margin, then you need to pack Expasil, retraction cord, use your diode laser. Okay, so buying an intraoral camera isn't a silver bullet that's going to help you get a better impression. You still have to practice the same way you always practice. If you're having issues taking impressions, then you're going to have issues with an intraoral camera. The nice thing about an intraoral camera that if you do take it, instantaneously it's blown up on your computer screen 30 times. And when we first started doing this in 2002, one of my assistants, she would tap me on the shoulder and said, "Do you see that distal lingual line angle dion?" And I said, "Ooh, yeah, let me go back in there, let me reprep it a little bit, and let's rescan it again." That's another nice thing. You can take, and you got to be humble. I feel very humble talking to you today, and I think that's a virtue that a lot of dentists should have. You have to be humble. You have to get the feedback from your assistants. It's a second set of eyes. I place a lot of implants, probably about 1,000 a year. And I'm looking at one angle and my assistant's at 90 degrees. And she's always saying, coaching me, "Hey, doc, let's go ahead and move it a little bit this way. Can you turn it towards me a little bit?" So you need to be able to accept that coaching. Just because you have that doctorate doesn't mean that you're a know-it-all and you're a god. It just means that you went through the training. You went through the hardship to get that degree. And now you can utilize that degree to help people out. So if you're having trouble with polyvinyl fluoxetine impressions, you're going to have trouble with an intraoral scanner. So, doctor, I'm going to tell you, let's take a step back and see where we're at first.
So let's go back to Edward R. Shellard, the chief dental officer at Carestream Dental. Now, Atlanta, Georgia. Do you work a lot with Carestream because it's right around the corner from you in Tampa? I mean, you're basically in the Tampa area. What is your fascination with Carestream Dental as opposed to BioLace or 3M or Sirona or Dentsply, all these companies?
I don't work as much as I have in the past with Carestream. I've been really trying to focus on my practice. Been doing lots of CE credits. But I will tell you one thing about Carestream that we've liked from the beginning is that Carestream, when they come in, they're not telling us how to change what we're doing in our office. What they're saying is that let's see if we put this CBCT in. We have a CS 9300. I would recommend the 8100. It's a lot cheaper, better resolution. For a CBCT.
Okay, say that all over again. So they recommend. Okay, say that again.
We have our second CS 9600 or 9300. I'm sorry, CBCT.
CS 9300 CBCT.
Right, but they have a 8100, which is less expensive, and it has a little bit better resolution. And that would be the one that I would recommend to.
And which one? And what's that one called again? The
8100. Yes, CS 8100.
8100.
Yeah.
And okay. And so how much is the you don't know, right?
I'm sorry, I don't know, like I said, I really focus on the clinical aspects of things. The nice thing about Carestream is they're not telling you, doctor, if you do this and this and this, you'll be more productive. Or you do this and this and this, you can do this. They're saying, we're going to give you this tool and it may make you practice better, may make you more successful in how you do things. So it's not changing how you do anything. The same way with their intraoral scanner. They're not saying, okay, now you have to powder the tooth and you have to do this, you have to do that. It's just do the same way you always have.
Well, you said powder, and I still think that was the kiss of death for True Deaf at 3M.
Yeah, it was. Even though it had a light sprinkle.
Yeah, and everybody, and that's what, and I went to tell these young kids that's how humans communicate, and I own a media company, so a media just means a communication medium. We're talking right now. We're Skyping right now. They may be listening to this on iTunes or YouTube. There's print, billboards. It's just a medium, and when the key rule in marketing is whatever they're talking about is their problem. So when you see a commercial and they say, well, there's 2 scoops of raisins in every box of Raisin Brands. Well, you already know there's no raisins in a Raisin Bran, and you haven't even opened the box yet. They wouldn't be spending millions of dollars on TV telling everybody there's 2 full scoops of raisins in every box. And you just said don't have to spray powder, and that just flew out of your unconscious like boom. And every time you would listen to a True Deaf deal, they'd always get someone like Gordon Christian or somebody to talk about how easy that powder thing, don't even listen to it. It's like, dude, that must be everything. So do you think it was the powder that killed it?
Well, you know what? The wonderful thing about CAD-CAM dentistry and CAD-CAM in generalized in businesses, it's so extremely accurate. So when you're spraying, dusting it as they do in 3M or in the old CERAC days where I used to powder everything, the lips, the cheek, the cotton roll, you don't know the thickness of that powder in that specific area on top of that prep or anywhere else. So that was an uncontrolled variable. The same way the uncontrolled variable of the gypsum stone that we used to use to make models. That's an uncontrolled variable. We don't know the expansion all the time. If the technician who's making the model using the proper water the powder ratio. So that's the wonderful thing about CAD-CAM. Besides being able to blow your prep up 30 times to see if your dentistry is adequate, it also makes sure that your restorations are going to fit really well.
Well, there's a lot of things going into that oral scanner. What you just said, you were talking about the error stack. And, you take an impression that might have a 50 micron margin. You pour that up in stone. You just said, we don't know how that sets up all the way. You didn't follow the instructions. There's another error stack. Every time you do a process, impression to stone to trim to wax, all these errors add up. So a little plus or minus 50 micron 5 steps later is 250 microns, whereas when you go digital, you just got rid of that whole error stack. And the magnification is if you don't think that's the most weighted variable on quality, then you should go have Stevie Wonder do your dentistry and then come back and talk to me. So it's magnification with loops.
Yes.
The endodontists have a microscope. And what you're saying, the first time I did an oral scan of a tooth and I looked at it, I was so humiliated. I almost turned in my dental license and just went home and said, okay, this isn't really working. So what you say, when you scan that and you see the prep 30, 40 times bigger on the monitor, that's your fastest way to quality.
Right.
So
and you're not the only one seeing it. Your assistant's seeing it too. So there's a little bit of pride there. If there's a problem or mistake and she sees it and you see it, you want to go fix that right away. And you're not wasting money on more impression material.
Yeah, and there's a huge problem in dentistry where I don't know what percent of the dentists do it, but about a significant amount of dental assistants and hygienists that I talk to, they say that when they ask a dentist a question about any of the dentist's work, it's negative dysfunctional pushback. And if you're working on that team, you need to be communicating. You're going to say, look, doc, we're both working on the patient. I work for you, you give me money, but my first priority is the patient. And if this is a problem for you, I need to move on because you're not going to change a toxic person. And my gosh, what I did with all my impressions for 30 years with the same assistant, I said, well, if you think it needs to be retaking, then don't explain to me why. Throw it in the trash can and start with the next one. I mean, it's a lot faster. When I see that Impergum impression hit the trash can, you don't even have to tell me what you're thinking. I pretty much know the value of that Impergum impression. So you got to get the whole team on. And by the way, if you go into any dental lab in the world and you just hold up a big case in your hand and just look at it straight in front of you, you can tell if he's a right-handed dentist or if she's a left-handed dentist. I mean, hell, the angle tells you that.
Same way placing implants.
So I noticed when I know you're so passionate about technology, and so far all you're talking about is oral scanners and CBCTs. You didn't mention CERAC, CAD-CAM, E4D. Does that mean that after 30 years of doing this, you're less passionate about chairside milling than you are oral scanning and CBCT?
No, like I said, we started in 2002 with CERAC. That's how I became part of the, with Olaf Schenk, was the North American editor for the International Society of Computerized Dentistry. 2008, we were like the 82nd person to buy an E4D. We've had
and that
iTero
was out of Dallas,
years.
Texas.
Planko, I think it was.
And what was that guy's name? And is that, oh my God, E4D. That guy was. But anyway, so he sold that to Plan Mecca,
right?
Which is out of Helsinki, Finland, and CERAC was owned by Sirona, which was spun off from Siemens, which now married Dentsply. So how do those two companies look for you, CERAC versus E4D? I mean, to me, it looks like CERAC got 85% of the sales, and E4D got the rest. But the big picture is they never passed 15% market share, unlike digital x-rays, intraoral cameras, all these things like that. So it seems like it hit a wall. Is that just for the time being, and little innovations before they push out further market share?
You know what? 15 years ago, it was just CEREC. That was the only intraoral camera available, and they were pretty dead set in their vision and how they were going to do things. Right now, there's about 12 intraoral scanners out on the market. I just listened to a guy in Houston, Patty from Germany, and he was saying that he read a statistic in his lecture that only 5% of dentists worldwide are using intraoral scanners. And that reminds me of something Ed Shallard told me.
What percent of?
He said 5%, and I found that hard to believe.
5% worldwide.
Yes, are using intraoral scanners.
Worldwide, that's. I mean, there's 2 million dentists. I mean, I don't think there's any. I mean, that it's a very different market in South America, Africa, and Asia versus
that's true.
Europe and North America.
Yeah,
but anyway.
But 10 years ago, Ed Shallard had told me that only 30% of people were using digital X-rays, and now it's about 80%. So as more and more companies, you get rid of the early adopters and everything, and more companies are developing things and things are getting less and less expensive, we're going to see more of this technology come out.
And
and competition's good. So CEREC is going to have to change. They are going to have to innovate to compete with the other 11 companies.
Yeah. So it was so the guy that founded that was who was that? That was Mark Quadling. And then he sold that to Basil Heyman, and then they sold it to Plan Mecca. Basil Heyman, he was an amazing man.
Entrepreneur.
Yeah. So to be more succinct, she graduated from dental school in a couple of years ago. She's been working for Aspen for 3 or 4 years or whatever, and she's going to start her own office. And there's 3 big things: an oral scanner, a CBCT, and a chairside milling with a CAD-CAM.
Definitely, yeah.
Of those 3, how many would you recommend?
I recommend all 3. I really do. I think that patients' times are more important sometimes than the dentist's time. I get so upset when a patient is waiting in the reception area because they come a little bit early. If the chair is free, let's put the patient in there. Their time is very important. If we're able to mill the crown while they're here, then let's do it.
And how much, a lot of people think, that it takes up too much chair time, that it's going to be, just too much time to do chairside milling. I mean, you come in and, there's a lot of.
Well, doctor, you should get an extra chair so that you can see an emergency patient. There's just about a 30 or 40 minute downtime. We've graduated to a point where 5 years ago, we now have a technician who does that for us. So as soon as he gets the scan, he's designing the crown or sometimes a bridge, and he's milling it right then and there for us. So,
and the most successful dentist I know in my backyard, he does the same thing. He scans all week long, and then temporary, and then he has a lady who works at a crown and bridge lab, and she comes in Wednesdays after work and does all of his chairside milling. So he does the chairside scanning, in-house milling, but not same day appointment. Do you see that?
I think that's fantastic, and I have friends who say I would never buy a mill because this technician that I've been using for the last 20 years, he knows exactly what I want, so I'm going to use him. So I always say, doctor, what if that technician decides to retire? Now you have to start all over again. If you know what you want, you do it yourself.
So,
right?
Yeah. So being a dentist for 30 years, I mean, I love dentists, but there's a lot of things they all have in common. And one of the things they all have in common is that they didn't go to 8 years of college to be a salesman. And you helped develop. You helped develop a case presentation module for Kodak SoftDent, and I always and you like to talk about digital marketing. These are just 2 things dentists naturally hate. I mean, why didn't you just start a company teaching dental assistants to serve kale for lunch every day? Just have an office party eating kale. By the way, if you cook kale, what I like to do is use a lot of butter on the bottom. That way, when you're done cooking it, it's so much easier to scrape it into the trash can. But did you see what made you start a case presentation module for Kodak? How does that journey start? And you knew you'd have resistance to that before you started because they don't want to sell. They don't want to present dentistry.
Well, let's take a step. Dental school, we're learning clinical skills that are going to help us for the rest of our lives. You had a gentleman you talked to a couple weeks ago on a podcast. I think it was Dr. Fluky. You went to school with him.
Yeah.
You talked about technology, and there's that theory that was developed in the 60s that after 18 to 24 months, technology changes. About 2 years ago, I heard Mike Pico speaking. Like I said, I love CE. And he said sort of the same thing, that in dental school, about 18 to 24 months after you graduate, 50% of what you learned isn't going to be valuable anymore. The other 50% will take you throughout your whole dental career. That's anatomy, physiology, things like that. So you have to be able to move and shift as you go by. Now, it is still a business, like any other business. We talked about cooking kale. Let's say we're opening up a restaurant. It's still a business. Every business is run the same. You have to have a plant service, a nice building. You have to have good quality. That's the doctor taking CE classes. And you have to have good customer service. And my office, I call it customer satisfaction. And that doesn't mean you give the patient anything they want. That means you listen to them and you say yes to them. None of those things are ever taught to dentists in dental school. There's some really good books out there. Dentists who are starting their own practice after practicing for a few years, I always tell them to read the Simon Sinek book, Start With Why. Find out what your vision is. If you know what your vision is, then you build your practice. Another really good book out there is E-Myths by Gerber, where he says is once you start your business, pretend like you're a McDonald's and you're going to franchise it. Even though you may never franchise it, you'll have all these SOPs in place and you'll be able to run it very smoothly. So that way you can focus on the dentistry. Or in his example, he says making the pies. So if you're a young dentist, you got to have a nice building, keep all the light bulbs lit. You got to have the quality. You got to take the CE classes, and it's hard to invest. We just talked about being $40,000 or $400,000 in debt, but you have to invest in your education, and you got to have a good team, like we talked before. I always give the analogy of a football team, and I'm the coach. And sometimes I'm not on the field, and a tackle will have to come up to me and say, "Hey, doc, we should do this and this and this for this patient," and I have to take that in. Sometimes, too, we have punters on our football team, and a lot of times a team member will say, "Hey, how come the punter is sitting on the bench all the time?" Sometimes you need that team member for that specific skill. So, it's amazing. Another thing I always like to tell young dentists is that dental business is like any other business, except for one thing. Howard, if you were the CEO of Ford Motor Company, you'd come in the morning and do a little bit of paperwork. Then do you go downstairs and cut mufflers or tailpipes for 8 hours and then go back upstairs and do some more paperwork? No, you sit there and you run the business. But as dentists, we don't. If our burr, like Bill Blatchford says, if our burr is not spinning, we are not making money. We can't help our employees or their families if we're running the business. So I'm always a big fan for young dentists to get consultants.
That's interesting how you, out of nowhere, you just said standard operating. You said SOPs. And you said so many things. I want to go back. So SOP is standard operating procedure. And, of course, the who's the guru of that, of all things standard, Marcia Freeman. And she's, she made a whole career out of doing this. And it's never done. No one ever does it. But, Southwest Airlines, these guys were geniuses. They said, well, the first thing we're going to do is just eliminate down to one plane. We're only going to fly a Boeing 737. We're not going to, because then you just with intention, now your mechanics don't have to learn, Boeing, Airbus, all these different things.
Right.
My gosh, you walk into a dental office and every single one of the operatories is set up differently.
Right, that's wrong.
And you go do a hygiene check and they're saying, it's just a little filling. Can you do it now? No, because we don't even have a high speed in this room.
Or they just had a filling the other day and they came in for hygiene and the bite's a little high. Yeah, but we have little tubs and we have standard operating procedures for all those things. Another big important thing too for a young dentist is to develop some checklists. I do a lot of full arch surgeries now, and I've really over the last 10 years gotten away from prosthetics and more into the surgical realm of dentistry because I enjoy it a little bit more. And you can do stuff that you enjoy as you get older. And every surgery, there is a checklist there. And I look at it and my assistants will go by and make sure everything's off the checklist. So when the patient's seated, we're ready to go. There isn't going to be, oh my gosh, I do a lot of LPR. Where are the needles to draw the blood? Everything is ready there because on the checklist, the same way the pilot for the 737 on Southwest, they have a checklist too.
Yeah, and I have read that if pilots had oh my God, just the smallest little error rate, there'd just be, planes dropping every single day. They wouldn't even consider. So, and you also said something very profound. When I started my Today's Dental in 1987, everybody thought it was absurd because I set up the LLC as Today's Dental Incorporated Store Number 1. and everybody was like, store number one, are you going to put a second one in there? And I said, well, it doesn't even matter.
No, it
Because
doesn't.
the sweet spot of going bankrupt is between office 2 and 3. That's when most people die at about the 3 to 5 million mark, because the first one, they don't realize their team's just muscling it through and they don't have any standard operation procedures. They don't know the why and what they're doing. And so when you and so having another location really show that little problem that you never saw because it was just like a little scorpion under the table now comes out from underneath the table. It's the size of a dog, and you got a Rottweiler barking at you. You know that this just isn't working. By the way, when you were speaking in Scottsdale, you were in Arizona, which is the only state that accepts a licensed practice dentist from any state to come here and practice dentistry, which is why we're the highest for working for a DSO. 18.6% of Arizona dentists work for a DSO. And a DSO, the definition is just, I don't like the definition at all. I just like group practice. You know, just say group practice and number of locations. I mean, group practice, 2 locations, 5 locations. Everybody talks about the group practice, 500 to 1,000 locations, but 85% of that pie is 2 to 3 locations. And so, do you think those dentists are going to enjoy that business model?
I think it's very important. I know there's a lot of dentists like myself in private practice that don't like that business model, but that's their protocols. It's set up for their patient pool, who they're focusing on. My focus for my patients, my vision for my patients is a little bit different than a lot of the corporate dentists are in my area. So, you know, we had one that just opened up 1.5 miles down from my office, and all my friends are going, "Oh, Dan, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, Dan? What are you gonna?" I'm not doing anything. I'm focusing on my vision. I want to help people. I enjoy seeing people smile again. That's why I went to prosthetics and now into implant surgeries.
Are
So
you a
it doesn't affect
prosthodontist?
by training, yeah.
So, but are you? So you're considered a specialty?
No, I don't practice my specialty.
But you
'Cause
have
when I
the
got
training. So you're a
Yeah, I had the
prosthodontist who doesn't practice his training.
right.
Okay.
So it worked out really good when I moved to Florida out of the Navy. There's a mobile home park near us, and I was a superstar. Everyone who had bad dentures, I got them working. But I made so many friends in that trailer park, and there's some people that I couldn't help. So that's why I started going into the implants, because I know if I could get some anchors in there, I could really help them chew a little bit better and enjoy life a little bit better. Look at a menu and say, "Hey, I want this to eat," or not, "Oh, can I eat this?"
So you're a prosthodontist, and probably the biggest name in my mind was Carl Misch, and you've already mentioned dentures several times, and that's why he became the best, because he started off with dentures, and he was looking at all these failing implant cases and why they were trying to blame it on the titanium and the implant and the design. He's like, well, your bite was an F. And so he started with dentures, and he said learning the bite was everything. And then he became a surgeon. And what I'm excited most about implants is it's the, you know, if you go into a business where someone else sets your fee and it's highly capital intensive, you've already lost the game. And so these are that's the procedure that dental insurance company schemes don't set the fee on. So Delta's not telling you that you can only charge $900 for an implant. So that's why we see implants and Invisalign or clear aligners growing double digit around the world. So do you, how many are you're placing and restoring?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that. Are you implant agnostic, or is there something you like?
Name brand?
Yeah, the implants you're placing.
I like BioHorizon. I think I placed over 800 of them in 2019. I really liked the Interlock implants. They're out of Italy. They had a synergistic effect with the exudate I would get from the LPRF, and they were very forgiving if you used LPRF and placed those implants. But in September of 2018, I think BioHorizon bought them out. So now it's very difficult for me to get those implants. So
well, I think I know how your mind works. You started you're in Tampa, so you first branch out. You went around to Atlanta and helped with them, and then you just went one state over to for BioHorizons out of
Alabama.
Alabama. So I'm trying to look at this map. So if I go to Tampa, and then I go to Atlanta, and then I'm going to Birmingham, I'm trying to think of where you're going to stop next. I think straight up to Nashville. And so, my gosh, so what is going to be your next dental company in Nashville? I see where this road trip is going.
Well, about 2 years ago, I was asked to help teach down in the Santo Domingo, and Dominican Republic for ITC seminars. So I go down there once or twice a year, and I teach dentists from the States and Canada how to place implants, how to do sinus lifts, both crustally and laterally. So I'm starting to get more towards the helping the younger dentists out and helping dentists out. It's more fulfilling for me. It sounds selfish. It makes me feel good when I'm helping somebody else out, and that's my where I'm at right now in my life.
So you said ICT seminars?
ITC seminars. Ivan Casabianca, he's out of Laguna Hills.
ITC seminars.
Yep.
Implant training centers.
Yep.
All right. And what do you think of that? How's that going?
I think it's really nice because he has a class that he teaches in Laguna Hills. So they already have a didactic background before they come and start placing implants. I work with Mauro Gerben, who was a big KOL for Neodent, which is now Straumann. He teaches, so he does a whole 1 day of just didactic lectures. And the next 3 days, the patients that those students see are specifically what they want to do. So if I wanted to go to that class and just learn lateral sinus lifts, Dr. Casabianca, Ivan, he'll have patients set up for me for the next 3 days just to do that. If I've never placed an implant before, he'll put me with another student who has placed a couple implants, and he'll have patients where they have tremendous amount of bone, no sinus involvement, no nerve involvement, so you can place implants. So he handpicks the patients the week before all the students come down there. So it's really nice from that standpoint.
Do you think he should change his last name to just go Casablanca?
I don't know.
I mean, why would you be that close to Casablanca and leave it? That doesn't make any sense to me, but he's going to keep it?
Yeah, I think so.
So he's the founder and CEO of ITC Seminar. He's an amazing man. How's the feedback from the students? I always measure them succinctly, starting with orthodontics. Yes, when long before clear aligners, when I got out of school, no single orthodontist would teach orthodontics to a dental student, let alone a general dentist when they got out of school, because that was just their culture. And it was only Richard Litt. He was the only board certified, and Harry Green out of Phoenix. Those are the only two board certified orthodontists that would even teach ortho. But I always would measure them by what percent of their students go home and place implants afterwards. So when Ivan and you take a group of kids down to, you said Dominican Republic?
Yeah, Santo Domingo, yeah.
Santo Domingo. How many of those kids a year later are placing implants versus they're done?
Well, I'm going to tell you, we have a private Facebook page, and once they've gone through the class, they email me and I get them on board with it. And I post some of the cases I do once a week, and they start posting some of the things that they do. And if I've noticed after a month or so I haven't seen any posts or anything, I'll send them a little email. How are things going? Is there something I can help you with? And most of them are placing implants. Most of their questions, though, to me are, what are your SOPs on this? I know you talked about checklists, Dan. What are your SOPs on doing a crestal sinus approach? And I say, well, you know what? I have mine. I can help you develop yours. But McDonald's SOPs won't work for Burger King because there's two different visions there. So you have to come up with your own SOPs. You have to sit down and write them. And I rewrite mine about once a year. I'm in the process of redoing that right now. So mostly it's how. It's not really the dentistry about it. It's the pre-dentistry about it. And then of course we talk a lot about selling dentistry too.
Well, let's. That was the question I leaned into. So you love technology, and you talked about oral scanners, CBC, chairside milling, and then I brought up that you had developed this for Kodak case presentation. For my first question is, how do you even how do you like to measure case presentation? Because a lot of my
Ooh.
friends will tell me, they'll say, okay, well, if I'm aggressive, and I always take the time to sit down, do a thorough exam, diagnosis and treatment plan, Pankey, Dawson, complete dentistry, and the majority won't get that, then it looks like I didn't do any of my work. But if I'm a low diagnoser and all I see is, well, you got a stick on number 2, you need an occlusal, and they do it. So how do you measure treatment plan presentation success?
That is the most difficult thing to measure or anything like that. But I'm going to take a step back. Those doctors that you're talking about are not talking to the patient. You have to communicate with the patient. And as an aside, what we had set up and sold to Carestream was just a PowerPoint. So if you treatment plan a crown, a root canal, a gold onlay, it's in the treatment plan. It automatically prints out this treatment plan book for the patient through PowerPoint. But let's talk about the bigger issue here. These doctors who are doing all this work, doing all this pre-op, doing a full mouth series, CBCT, checking everything out, and then they present the treatment plan. Did they ever talk to the patient? What does the patient want? What does the patient really want? Do they have a budget in mind? If you don't talk about any of these things up front with the patient, they're not going to tell you what you need to do. Okay? I'll give you a great example. We were talking about planes a little bit ago. Let's say you've never been to Hawaii before, okay? And I'm going to say, Howard, you're going to go to Hawaii. What are you thinking of? The beaches, the luau's, the hula girls, correct? Okay. Are you really, really concerned about how that plane flies, how the engine works, how the training that the pilot did? No, you're not. So when a patient comes to a dental office, they're not coming there just because they need to get established or just because they need their 6-month exam. There's a reason they're coming there. Let's find out what that reason is. They want to be in Hawaii, maybe. Okay. And then once you know they're going to be in Hawaii, Howard, doing that, what you want to do, I can get you smiling, but that may be cost as much as a Toyota Corolla, maybe $25,000, $30,000. Is that something you'd be interested in? Yes, that's great. Oh my God, no, I'm Florida. I'm in a fixed income. I get Social Security. Okay, now you know what exams you need to do and what you need a treatment plan. Now, I'm not saying you treatment plan to their finances. You always treatment plan as though they're a family member. In my office, one of our protocols is we don't treat them as though they're a family member. We treat them as they're our pet. Because sometimes our family members, we give and take for, but we always do the best for our pets. Okay. Then you can say, hey, I can get you to Hawaii. Is this something you can do? Why are doctors wasting an hour of their time when the patient doesn't have any money or their whole life they haven't cared about dentistry? Their wife forced them to come into the office. My wife, I haven't had my teeth cleaned in 5 years. My wife's coming, I don't want anything done. Nothing hurts me. I just want to get out of here. Okay, that's great. Let's get your teeth cleaned, buddy. Right? Let's help this guy out. But why waste an hour doing a full mouth examination?
Yeah. You were talking to young dental students, and then in Scottsdale, and we were talking about that, and then you recommended the book, Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
And it's
That was
funny.
why.
It's funny because he did a video that went viral, and the millennials are so mad at him because he was saying that. Did you see that video?
Yeah, I sure did. Yeah, it's about 70 minutes long. It makes a lot of sense,
Okay, we'll tell them what makes sense about it. You saw it. It's 70 minutes long. So now all the millennials hate it, and you like it. Okay, boomer. Okay, boomer.
Yeah,
so here's two old boomers. Is there any merit to what he said? Well, tell him first what he said.
I don't think he insulted anybody. He just gave his point of view, about where they came from, how they feel privileged that they should have things. The reason I can understand what he's talking about, I have young dentists that come out. We had a young dentist about 3 years ago who was interviewing for an associate position in our practice, and he says, I want to just do veneers. We have a very big cosmetic practice, and it's like, well, you know what? How many veneers have you done? Well, I've done 8 cases, no, 8 teeth. So what they want, Howard, they're looking for the car, the big home, the motorboat, but they don't want to build the basis to get there. They see me, they see my partner, they see our other associate, how successful they are. But it took us a long time to build the practice and get that to that point. They want that immediate satisfaction like they get on their electronic devices.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that he said the most profound is that, it's always stereotyping. And he's like, okay, so you look at everything they say about the stereotype millennial, and he says, look at these two facts. Only 46% of millennials grew up in two-parent homes. So if you're going to do a mathematical stereotype, it was raised by a single parent. Only 43% of millennials were Caucasian in the U.S. So why are you having this stereotype of some white dude that grew up with a mom and dad? That you're not even just there. But it's so funny because you're not supposed to be racist, but the racist things always show up. Like, I'll say a stat, and they'll say, well, is that for U.S. or Canada? And I'm always thinking, why is your first thought to always divide the herd? And, you know, talk about a dentist. Well, is that a millennial or a boomer? Is that a blonde or brunette? It's like, okay, we're one species. There's 8 billion of us.
Right.
You know, can we stay focused on what we're talking about? And the millennials, what we're talking about is what I see the most difference about millennials is the student loan indebtedness, and that is and then the change from boys to girls, and a lot of those girls have told me hundreds of times, I'm divorced, I got a 10-year-old kid, I don't want to own my own business. So when some old boomer thinks Heartland's bad for dentistry, well, who's dentistry?
They're wrong.
I'm talking to this lady, and this lady is a dentist, and she lives up the street from me, and it works well for her. Why are you worried about the other 8 billion people? I mean, how much of the time do you spend each day worrying about the 100 billion humans that died before the present? I mean, they're dead, and you're not going to meet 99% of the ones alive. So it's it's always a bad error to stereotype everyone into one category. I mean, not even all Irish are drunks. So, none of these stereotypes hold up.
Well, you know what, Howard? Just think how boring the world would be if we were all alike. The good Lord did this on purpose. I want to say something. You're talking about the millennials. Zig Ziglar, who you probably know who is, and no one listening to this podcast probably knows who he is. He had said something that he met a man who was very successful, and his two parents were alcoholics. And he goes, then I met his twin brother who was in and out of jail. His two parents were alcoholics. Okay, the past does not equate where we are today. You have to take responsibility for who you are right now. And I think that's one of the things that Simon Sinek in that 17-minute long YouTube video was talking about. You have to take responsibility for who you are right now at this point in time. I used to tell my kids, my one son's a rocket scientist. My other daughter, she worked extremely hard, and she would study very hard, and she would get B's and C's. And it doesn't matter how much effort you put into it, it's the results that count, okay? If you spend 45 minutes taking out a wisdom tooth, does that make you a bad dentist? No, you still got a good result. If you spend 45 minutes taking out a wisdom tooth and you cut the nerve, well, then there's an issue there. That's a bad result. So it doesn't matter how much effort you put into it. It's the results you get, okay? And that's part of life. Acknowledge it and move on. We're talking about being Catholic. I say this to my staff all the time because I'm OCD. I'm very particular on things. That's why I have checklists and SOPs. That's a Navy thing. I know we talked about that. But I always say when they beat themselves up, I always make them put their temporary on the printed model. If we're getting a model from another laboratory, and so the margin's short. I always tell them there's only one person ever in this world who is perfect. And what happened to him? He got crucified. So it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to put a lot of effort in and not get a good result, but let's learn from it and move forward.
So,
So I'm getting off the soapbox.
No, I love your soapbox. I've been a fan of yours. I loved your articles. You and your partner wrote an article on CAD-CAM and all that stuff. But I'm just thinking a lot of things. You really enjoy your partner. You enjoy group practice. I was only out of school for about an hour. And I hired my first associate because I had just left dental school. We were hanging out with 100 classmates. I had Fluky on the other day. I hung out with him for 4 years in dental school. And you, I think a big draw, instead of saying, oh, the millennials are they're not setting up their own practice because there's something wrong with them. Well, there's girls, and girls do a lot of relationships. The mom's going to have to do more stuff with the children than the dad. Right. And it just is what it is. But you enjoyed working with Richard Steinberg, and is that a partner? Years. Is that a 50-50?
It's a partnership, 50-50 partnership, yeah. And we are constantly being interviewed by different authors wanting to know how long this partnership lasts. And it lasted because we have the same vision. Okay. We both love being out at Applebee's and a beer coming over to our table from a patient who is so happy with the results of either a denture or veneers or implants. We both had the same vision. Now we're both totally different. I'm Catholic. He's Jewish. He does things one way. I do things the other way. Okay. So, but we know that we have one common thing. We have that vision, and that's what keeps us going and keeps us happy with each other and makes us successful as partners. And like I said, I'm very unique. I've always worked with other dentists in dental school, prosthetic training, in the Navy, and now with Dick.
So I think group practice is just more fun. I mean, I just love it. I mean, now if you have an open, fear-free relationship and you're hearing feedback from your assistants and hygienists, and you're taking them with you to CE or online CE, things like that. Let's talk about online CE. I know you've done some stuff with Aldo Eagle, the president of Dental Learning, right?
Right, yeah.
So what do you think? That's one thing the millennials have more access to. I got into online CE for Dentaltown in 2004. We put up over 400 courses that have been downloaded and viewed 1 million times. We didn't have that coming out of school. How do you think that is? Do you think it's just for didactic, or how do you think that's going to change?
I talk to, I live about an hour south of where I went to grade school and high school. So I have a lot of friends who are professionals who aren't doctors or dentists. Very unique, Howard. Remember when we went to dental school, we would have to get the JADA or some sort of research article to see what a dentist did 3-4 years earlier and how successful he was. Okay. We are so lucky. I do a lot of CE through Dental XP. We are so lucky now with cloud-based learning. We have a dentist who says, over the last 4 months, I've been doing this type of procedure, and he posts it on Facebook or something like that. And you can see it and you can get the input right away. We're not waiting 3 or 4 years to read it in a journal. We're seeing it live. So our learning over the last 5 or 6 years has just been exponential because of this. It's just amazing. The things that I'm doing now in dentistry, I'm doing LPRF. If you would have told me that 5 years ago, I would say, do I have to put a mask on and do a voodoo dance for this stuff to work? I'm doing grafting without even using bone. I grind up people's teeth,
And that was made by that was made by Straumann, was it?
What?
The grinding up teeth. No, the one in South Korea. The device.
Dr. Soon. Dr. Soon. No, the one I'm doing is
Dr. Park.
Oh, Dr. Park too, right? Yeah. The one I'm using is Kometo Bio out of Germany, Viderman. His son Amit is running the company. He did tons of research in the 80s and 90s on Viderman on dentin as graft material, and his son has taken it a little bit further, and now he's made a grinder and everything like that. So we're doing dentin grinding, and we're doing LPR. I've done a few ridge preservations where I don't even use bone. I'm just using LPRF, and that's from Nelson Pinto from Chile.
Okay, that term though. There's people that don't know the term. You just said LPRF.
Yeah, leukocyte rich plasma. Leukocyte plasma rich fibrin.
And how critical is that to implant success, do you think?
I think it's a success. No, success with not with the outcome, but success with the patient. There's a lot less inflammation. Like I said, I do a lot of full arches. I'll pull teeth, place 5 or 6 implants on an upper or lower arch, or sometimes on both arches, and they come back the next day or 3 days later, hardly any discomfort at all. Discomfort after the anesthetic wears off, and that's it. So it's more successful in lieu of how the patient thinks. The success rate of the implants has stayed the same over the last 10 or 15 years that I've been doing this, but it's more comfortable. But like I said, I'm doing things that I would have thought 5 years ago was voodoo, that I would need a rattle and a mask. I'm growing bone without placing bone in there. I'm not using decalcified mineral, demineralized bone. I'm using, sometimes I'll use a beta calcium phosphate,
Well, when you, when I podcast interviewed Carl Misch before he passed on, it was the biggest complaint. The people loved him, but they were so mad that he did call these procedures voodoo. And here you're saying that there was a time when you also thought they were voodoo. Why has it gone from voodoo black magic to now the real thing? You're saying healing
because of the internet. Because I'm seeing these cases done in Chile. I'm seeing these cases done in Spain where they're using this interlock centrifuge. And there's specific reasons the interlock centrifuge is so much more successful than other ones on the market. And you're seeing these cases that were done 6 months ago and a year ago that otherwise I would have read in a journal. But the point I was making is this cloud sourcing is making us better dentists by showing us things that are happening right now. And the learning is just exponential.
So you do like then the intralock, the intra-lock. You like that device?
I love it. I love it. Like I said, I've been doing full arch for about probably 7 years now, since 2013. God, I'm getting old. 7 years. Sometimes you can't draw blood. I have a lot of elderly women. It's very difficult to find it, and we still use the basics. I tend not to use any more the demineralized bone. I use a lot of the beta triceraphosphates. I'm trying not to use cadaver bone. I seem like I get better results. Another bone that I use when I can't draw blood is a bone cement called Ogma out of Israel. And I've gotten some great results on that on some of the patients 80, 85 years old. I'm onlaying bone enough so I have enough width to place an implant in 6 months.
So is Intralock, is that owned by BioHorizon?
It is now, yes.
So they bought that, and so
they bought, yeah.
And was that in response to Megagen coming out with that?
I don't know. I had always assumed when I found out that they bought it was because of the interlock implants. They had this osseous surface that was synergistic to the LPRF exudate. They had this fractional design of the threads, and that's why I thought. Because I had just incredible success with these interlock implants, where bone was growing over the top of them almost every time I placed them. So that's why I thought. But you're right. You're absolutely right. They bought it because of this LPRF.
And those. Why do you think the bone was growing over the top of them?
I think it's because they had this they call it an osseous surface. It's a coating. I don't want to get into a lot of implantology here, but titanium matures. If you open up an implant right now and you drop some water on it, it'll spread out really nicely. If you let it sit for a week, it'll start beating up. So when you surface coat an implant with something that's going to dissolve in the body, the titanium that then is exposed is brand new titanium. It hasn't been exposed to the air. It hasn't matured. So that's why I like implants that have a coating on them.
But you said Intralock that BioHorizon bought them, right?
Yes, they did.
Yeah, and how long ago was that?
I think it was in September of 2018.
But
the ADA and.
But I believe two things. When you look at implant companies, okay, the list is over 400 dental implant companies. There's over 40 clear aligner companies. So obviously, what's the most weighted thing? The most weighted thing, I say first, is just quality and legal, because when with implant, when a sealant falls off, mom doesn't even ask for her money back. But when you do a big implant case and it fails, if you warranty that and redo it, you just ate the profits for the next 2 big implant cases you do. So failure is everything. And if you go to court and you have some implant with no research, so you're down to about 10 big names, and obviously Straumann and BioHorizon and Nobel. So that's a gimme. After that, I believe that if I was given the best golf clubs in the world and Tiger Woods was given the worst golf clubs in the world, that he would beat me.
Yes.
I'm just gonna go on the record and say that. So even though I do own a Big Bertha club, so would after you recommend BioHorizon? It's Alabama. There you go. What would be next for quality?
Straumann.
No, not the implant. But what's the difference between success and failure?
Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you, like you said, there's 400 different, I thought there was 370, 400 different implant companies out there. So once again, I'm going to go back to something we talked about really early in this podcast, is developing a business model. You have to have a nice plant service. You have to have good quality, and you have to have customer satisfaction. That is the most important thing to me, is my relationship with that sales rep. If I have an implant that fails and I think I did everything right, I'm going to tell him, and hopefully he'll reimburse me for that implant. customer satisfaction is very important for your team. Once again, I use the football analogy. I'm going to use a Ritz-Carlton analogy. You go to the Ritz-Carlton here in Florida, Naples, Florida. It's July. When you get out of your car, they're going to hand you a nice lemonade with ice on it. Okay, here, thank you. You come back that next day out of your room and go to the front desk, say, can I have a glass of lemonade with ice on it? They say, sure, Dr. Farran, we'll get you one. And they're going to charge you $6.40 for it. Okay, what's the difference? The difference is that you're hot and they're helping you out. And that's what I'm looking in for my sales rep. I want someone who can help me out. I'm going to insult a lot of your listeners right now. Just because my father was in dental sales. He worked for a dental laboratory in Clearwater, Florida called Knight Dental. And he did dental sales. And because of that—
Your dad worked for the Knight Dental Group?
Oh my God, yeah. He was,
I did not know that. That's a big lab in Tampa, right?
Right, yeah. He was national sales from 1972 to, oh my gosh, let's see, 2000. From 72 to 2000, yeah. He just passed away 2 years ago.
And is Barbara Wojan, is she still
Bobby Warner's daughter? Yeah, Bobby Warner's daughter, who was the original owner, yeah.
And is she still the CEO and all that?
I think so, yeah.
Wow.
But the point I'm making is that because of that relationship I had with my father, when we first started working together, me and Dick, when a sales rep would come to our office, we didn't have the gatekeeper. I always wanted to sit and talk to them. And I'm going to tell you, to this day, after practicing for 30 years and being in private practice, owning a business for 23 years, I get more true advice from the sales rep than I do from other dentists. I'm going to give you a great example. I had a dentist, local periodontist, about a month and a half ago. He told me to stop using this one dermis and use this other dermis company. And he told me these great successes he's having and everything. So he gave me the name of the rep. I called her up. She came in and we're talking. She goes, well, you know what? He rarely buys this dermis from me. And she goes, really, our success is the same as the other company that you're using. So sometimes dentists to other dentists want to sound successful. So sometimes they lie. Sales reps will never lie to you. They may make their product sound really good. They may tell you all the great points of their product, but they can't lie to you, because if they lie to you, then you can never see them again, or use their company again, or give them the commission again. So I love sales reps. Whenever we go to these, I just went to the ICOI, as you see my T-shirt, this last weekend in Houston, and my first day, as I went and I talked to every sales rep there and every company, even companies that I don't use, or even companies I do use, because they're going to tell me exactly the truth, what's going on in the dental community, more than my colleagues are.
And the other thing with dentists, I mean, a lie, I'm sure there's 50 shades of gray on a lie. A lot of the times they just don't know. Like, for instance, whenever the insurance doesn't pay or something like that, they immediately just say that Delta Dental. And then when you try to chase down the deal, it was one of the 7 other insurance companies they work on. So
right.
You'll know somebody's talking to you to want help, and they're telling you their staff labor is 20%, and then when you get in there to help them, you find out it's 32%, and he didn't even know.
Right.
You see it sitting around the table where an old man like me, they paid off their land and building, whatever, so they think their overhead's lower because they don't have rent, and it's like, okay, well, if I sold your dental office and put it in a bond fund, it would be earning, what is the cost of capital of all this money tied up in land and building and facility?
And you still have to pay taxes. Property tax.
Yeah. So a lot of the dentists, I don't even think they're lying. I just think they have no idea what they're talking about. They're probably, I know dentists. I mean, when you go to 8 years of college to help people get out of pain with your own hands. I mean, like right now, the coronavirus, the thing that I wish they talk more of is how brave the doctors are that are treating these in hospitals and dying. And, the Spanish influenza started in Kansas, of 1918, and it went from a pig to a farmer, and then he got called into World War I and went into Leavenworth, which is the first known breakout. And my gosh, the fatality rates of nurses in hospitals, they didn't even last a year when they worked there, and they were still going out and recruiting these people to work in there. What's your thoughts on the coronavirus? You're politically incorrect, speak from the heart, tell it like it is. What is your view on this virus?
I think it's something that we need to be cautious about. I don't think that we need to fly off the handle and quarantine ourselves or anything like that. It's like anything else. I'm 56. I get a flu shot every year. It's not that I'm afraid of getting the flu, but if I get the flu, I'm cardiovascular issues. I can have inflammation, have a heart attack from it, and that could kill me. So the same thing with the coronavirus. It's a new type of virus. It may not be as let's say, deadly as a flu virus, but we don't know the consequences of getting it and what's going to happen. Or wash your hands, take precautions. But I don't think that we need to, be flying off the handle and blaming other people and saying we need to do this, we need to do that. I think our healthcare system here in the United States is outstanding. The CDC out of Atlanta, they're doing a great job. We need to just keep calm and just use our spark. The same thing. Let's say after 9/11, the thing was let's keep vigilant. Let's see if there's people leaving a briefcase or a backpack on a corner. Let's do these things. So it's somewhat of the same idea that we have this threat, be it a terrorist attack from after 9/11 or a virus attack in here in 2020. We just need to use common sense and not fly off the handle.
Yeah, I just can't believe all these COVID-19 viruses trying to invade my body without my permission. I mean, it makes me sick. Yeah. But I don't want to tell virus jokes because they might spread. And I also think it's you just can't politically correct say I'm pretty sure the worst case scenario is only 2% of the entire planet will die. Yeah. None of those things sound right, but humans, they always panic first. I can't believe we went well over an hour, but I want to end on one other thing. You were featured on Good Morning America, speaking about Invisalign.
5 years ago, yeah.
So there's just two areas growing double digit. It's implants, you talked about that, and clear aligners. Why are you as passionate about clear aligners as you are implants?
Nope, not at all.
Oh, tell me the truth. I think you want to think about it first.
No, I think for orthodontics, for a general dentist, it is an ideal thing to do. And we do clear aligners in our office. We do Clear Correct and Invisalign. And I think it's really good. I personally much rather do a veneer on somebody and get them exactly how they want. There's so many times over the last, I've been Invisalign certified since the year 2000. There's so many times that I have patients who come in who I think their smile looks beautiful. Doc, look at this corner right here. It's number 8, and they're pointing to the corner. I think it's out a little bit too far. I'm taking camera shots from the occlusal, and it's in the archway. I'm taking bite shots and everything, and they're just never happy. If I can slap a porcelain veneer on there, they want it a little bit rounded, I can just take it high speed and fix it up. So personally, I don't like ortho. When I worked in dental laboratories growing up through college and through dental school, I worked in dental laboratories. And the one thing I hated, Howard, was bending wire, and it just put a bad taste in my mouth about orthodontics. I thought clear aligners were going to change it. I became very involved in it. The reason we bought the iTero was so we could do Invisalign, and send it to iTero and everything. I don't get the satisfaction personally anymore at 56 years old of doing clear aligners. I have 2 wonderful doctors that work with me, and they both love doing them. And if I have a patient who's been my patient for 20 years and they say, hey, Dan, I'm really going to do those braces, I'm saying, you know what? You'll love Dr. Raj. He'll make sure it's right for you.
Yeah, and what you just said, all that talking really goes back to where we started on the DSO deal. You're talking to a bunch of young people, where DSO is going. Again, I don't want the DSO conversation to be about people that have 500 offices. It's the fact that group practice is more fun. So you can do blood and guts implants. Yeah. The patient gets one-stop shop. You have a partner, someone else is in there that can do Invisalign. So if you do blood, they can do soft and pretty. You made it all the way to the Good Morning America show. Does that mean you were good friends with Joe Hogan, the CEO of Invisalign?
No, my sister is a network genius, and she met a girl who knew a girl who was from Ivanhoe Production, and she was down in Tampa, and she missed her interview, and my sister said, hey, my brother's here. Why don't you interview him on Invisalign? Because it was just up and coming in 2000, 2002. So that was just
So did you see that Joe Hogan, the CEO of Align Technology, was ranked number 2 of Forbes' 10 most overpaid CEOs in America with a salary of $41 million a year, while the median employee pay for his company is $13,180. How do you think that'll go over in these times?
Well, you know what? We don't know what he had to go through in his life to get to that point. So maybe in his mind, that's his deserve level. If you don't take care of your football team and make sure there's a lot of Gatorade for them and reward those guys when they're done, if you don't take care of your team members, they're going to hate their head coach. So once again, if he doesn't take care of his employees, then they'll have some feedback from it. But maybe he is taking care of his employees. We just don't know that.
But it is weird. Like Robert Iger just retired from Walt Disney Company.
Disney, yeah.
His salary was $65 million a year, and his employees' salary is $46,000. It is an interesting model when you look at the economics of leverage. I mean, you use leverage. You learned it in geometry. There's 6 types of levers. I mean, there's a lever, 2 levers together. There's a lever over a wheel, an axle, the pulley. Economics needs leverage. I mean, there's no doubt about it, but it doesn't look pretty on paper. So, my gosh, was there anything that you wanted to talk about today that I didn't bring up, or you thought we would talk about?
Well, we talked just really quickly. We can get together some other time, or over a glass of scotch or something. When I flew in this Saturday night from Houston, I was at the ICOI, and at church on Sunday morning, I was coughing a little bit, and the gentleman sitting next to me goes, "You must have the coronavirus." And I said, "Oh no, it's the Crown Royal virus." Because I had to drink on the plane. But talking about digital things, I think where we need to go is more digital marketing, more digital funnel marketing. If you owned a dental laboratory, Howard, would you send postcards to a certain neighborhood saying, "I own this dental laboratory"? No, you wouldn't. You would send postcards to dentists. Now, if your dental laboratory, you enjoy doing, let's say, Invisalign, which we were talking about clear aligners. So would you send those postcards to every dentist, or just dentists who do orthodontics? So the advantage of digital marketing is that funnel. We're able to say, you know what, I want a specific niche, blue ocean, red ocean, purple cow. I'm sure you read those books or heard about those books. I want a specific niche. So now you can use digital marketing and funnel the patients, the leads that you're getting. And dentists don't do that. We put ads in newspapers. We send postcards to entire neighborhoods. We do not look for that patient that we want to treat. So that's my...
We'll keep going on that rant. Okay. So marketing... Right. Tell them what you're doing. Is there something you're doing? Is there a website you recommend? What's the action plan?
Yeah, I like this. This kid's a genius. His name is Dewey Denning. He's out of Utah. Dewey Dental Implant Machine is the name of his company. Do marketing, and the kid's a freaking genius, Howard. He knows these logarithms, and he can talk all this stuff. I remember one of the medals I got in the Navy 26 years ago was I came up with a little computer program on Lotus to help get patients in and out the door. This guy knows stuff, and he can say, "Hey, Dr. Dan, you really want to do clear aligners? This is what I'm going to do for you." And he does a lot of these Google ads. He does a lot of organic, meaning that people are looking for braces in your area, and your website will pop up. So he's able to do his, which I would think voodoo in my mind right now. Maybe one day I'll learn it, how to do this. And he's able to get the specific patient that you're looking for. And one of the things that we ask him to do for our patients in our practice is we want him to, before they come to our office as a lead, we want to know what their credit score is. Okay. And that's just something that we want in our practice, because we do a lot of cosmetics, a lot of full arch implants. So we want to make sure that we're not wasting our time, which we talked about a little bit before, that we have people there that are financially ready to do the treatment.
And so you like this young man, Dewey Denning.
Yeah, he's a freaking genius.
Is he only dental?
He is now, yes.
He is now?
Yep.
And he calls his company Marketing Do. Does he not understand that's a trigger word of Mountain Dew and my gosh, anything dew related, he's just going to get massive pushback. Has he considered changing his name?
No, I don't think he has. Him or Ivan, they haven't yet. But what he markets to dentists is called Dental Implant Machine.
Dental Implant Machine.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, you know what? If you recommend him and you think he's a great guy, hook me up with him, and we'll do him and put that after you. What is he doing for you?
He's giving us. I just figured this out because I know whenever I go places, people always ask me about him, and he works out a deal. If you mention my last name, Delrose, he'll give you the first month free. So just tell him you know me, Howard, okay? And I don't think any of your listeners will do that either. But My return on investment, well, it's about 1,600%, about 160 times my return is getting. I've spent $66,000 with them, and I've done $1 million worth of dentistry.
And he calls that the dental implant marketing funnel. So,
yes,
okay.
He does it digitally. He's going in there and he is getting the perfect candidate that's perfect just for you. We talk about SOPs, we talk about protocols, we talk about checklists, and I said you can't have the same one. If you're McDonald's, you can't be using Burger King's. So you have to decide what your vision is. Once you know what your vision is, then you can say, hey, Dewey, these are the patients that I want to treat. These are the patients I want to help, and he'll come up with a specific marketing plan just for you. So he has, I think, 130 dentists now as clients. None of them are the same as mine. Everyone is different.
All right. So how do they? So his website is Marketing Do.
Okay.
And it's one that you recommend.
I tell you what, the kid's so nice. And when I first started with him, there was me and 2 other dentists. And my partner says, why do you keep recommending him? he's going to forget about us, but he doesn't. He grew from 2 people. I think he's got 20 people now working for him. And he's just a nice, young, good kid.
And how do they contact him? You got as email or a C or that? It's marketingdo.com.
Yeah. I have his private cell number. You could call him at 3 a.m. See if he's Jake from State Farm.
Well, yeah. Well, email me that, and
I can email you that. But a dental implant machine. I don't know if you can Google that, and you could just send him a contact.
Just go to Marketing Do. So his name is Dewey Denning.
Right.
Think of Mountain Dew, and so it's marketingdo.com, and you'll be good. Anything else that was on your mind?
That's about it. You know, I feel bad for kids that come out of dental school. I was 50 years old. It was the August after my 50th birthday that I finally paid off all my dental loans. And I went to a private school, Case Western, and I feel bad for kids who are in that predicament. But once again, they have to know where they want to be, what their vision is. And I have no problem with them working for corporate dentistry for a little while to learn more about dentistry. We'll learn what they want to do. Maybe they're like me and they don't want to do ortho anymore. Or maybe they're like me and they love doing dentures. So that's something you really have to learn. You cannot be a general dentist anymore in 2020, Howard. You cannot know everything about endodontics. You cannot know everything about bonded restorative fillings. You cannot know everything about implants. We just talked about LPRF. You can't know everything about hygiene. You have to find your niche in dentistry.
So now you had 2 daughters, and they're both out of the home, or a daughter and a son. They're both born and gone out of the home, right?
Yes.
And you paid off all your student loans. So now you have...
One of my goals was not to have my children have any student loans either. And so when they graduate college, they are debt-free.
So now you finally have the money to and spend it all on a divorce. So have you...
Well, if I buy a boat, I will. My wife always kids me. I have to have my own Navy.
Well, hey, thanks so much for coming on the show. And we share another thing in common. Your middle name's Christopher, and my confirmation name was St. Christopher. And he lost his throne as a saint. Did that bum you out when you realized that you were named after a guy and he got dethroned?
No, it sure did.
All right. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming on the show, and I love your passion, and thanks for helping my homies. You're just a great man. I've been a fan of your career for 3 decades.
Yeah, I mean, I have students that I've taught. Yeah, even when I was doing my prosthetic residency, my email is ddelrose@northriverdental.com. If you want to shoot me an email and ask me a question or ask me how to set up an SOP, I can show you how to set it up. But once again, it has to be specific for what your vision is. But I have no problem answering questions. If you have questions about digital marketing or questions about setting up a practice, give me an email, ddelrose@northriverdental.com.
All right, buddy. Thanks so much. And send your buddy Ed Shellard on the show. That'd be really fun. My God, last time I was with him, it was me, him, and Semi having a drink in somewhere in California.
You can't go anywhere with Ed without him knowing somebody there. I mean, we've gone to Cologne, Germany together. We've gone to Paris together, and we're sitting there having dinner, and he knows like 5 people in the restaurant. It's just, he's just an amazing person himself.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.